Open any nan's kitchen cupboard in 1955, and you'd find the same humble parcel waiting on the cold slab, a pound of mince wrapped in white paper, costing barely more than a few coppers. From that single packet, a clever woman could feed a family of 6 and still have enough left over for tomorrow's tea. Mince was the great equalizer of the British table, cheap, endlessly stretchable, and forgiving of even the tightest budget. Today we're counting down 25 forgotten British mince dinners your nan made when money was tight. Dishes that turned the cheapest scrap of beef into comfort, that fueled shift workers and growing children through cold winters and leaner years. Some you'll remember at the first whiff, others vanished so quietly that hardly a soul noticed they'd gone. Which one tops the list? Let's begin our countdown with number 25. Number 25. Savoury mince on toast was the quickest supper in the post-war repertoire, the dish a tired mother reached for when the clock was against her. A few ounces of beef mince browned in the pan with a chopped onion, a spoon of flour to thicken, a crumbled OXO cube, and a splash of water from the kettle. 10 minutes, no more. By the late 1950s, it appeared on tea tables across Britain as the reliable fallback when the purse was light and the children were hungry. Spooned over thick slices of toast cut from a crusty loaf, it filled bellies for pennies. Mothers stretched a quarter-pound of mince to feed 4 this way, the gravy soaking into the bread until it turned soft and savoury. Children ate it without complaint, never knowing it was born of necessity rather than choice. Simple, fast, and quietly forgotten. Number 24. Mince collops carried the flavour of the Scottish kitchen, a dish so plain it scarcely needed a recipe, yet so beloved it survived generations. Housewives browned the mince hard in a heavy pan, breaking it down with the back of a wooden spoon until every lump was gone, then simmered it slow with onion, a pinch of oatmeal to thicken, and a good shake of salt and pepper. The oatmeal was the secret, swelling in the gravy and stretching the meat further than seemed possible. By 1956, collops appeared on tenement tables from Glasgow to Dundee, served with mashed potato and a heel of bread. The dish asked for nothing fancy, only patience and a steady hand. Children mopped the plate clean while fathers home from the docks praised its warmth. Few dishes spoke so honestly of thrift, and fewer still have faded so completely from the modern Scottish table. Number 23. Mince and dumplings brought heft to the supper bowl when a pound of beef had to do the work of 2. Housewives simmered seasoned mince with onion and carrot in a thin gravy, then dropped balls of sweet dough straight into the bubbling pot, clamping the lid down tight. The dumplings swelled as they steamed, soaking up the savoury liquor until they turned light and fluffy on top, dense and gravy-soaked beneath. By the early 1950s, the dish was a midweek fixture, especially in the colder months when a hot pot of dumplings could warm a whole family. The rattle of the lid signalled supper was close. Children fished for the biggest dumpling, mothers counted them out fairly, and fathers swore by the way they filled a man for a shift. Cheap sweet and a handful of flour turned a scant portion of mince into a meal that left no one wanting. Number 22. Rissoles were the proud answer to Monday's leftovers, the dish that gave Sunday's joint a second life. Housewives minced the cold remains of the roast, bound the meat with mashed potato and a beaten egg, seasoned it with sage and pepper, then shaped the mixture into flat cakes and fried them golden in a little dripping. The outside crisped while the inside stayed soft and savoury. By 1953, rissoles featured in nearly every household at least once a week, a model of the post-war refusal to waste a single morsel. Some mothers rolled them in breadcrumbs for extra crunch. Others stretched them with a few crushed crackers when meat ran short. Served with gravy and greens, they tasted of resourcefulness itself. Children never guessed they were eating Sunday's roast all over again. The humble rissole turned scraps into supper and asked nothing but a sharp eye for waste. Number 21. Durham cutlets carried the name of a county and the spirit of the coalfields, a dish dreamed up to stretch the smallest amount of meat as far as it would go. Housewives mixed minced beef with mashed potato, breadcrumbs, and a beaten egg, seasoned it well, then shaped the mixture into the form of a small chop, even pressing a little piece of macaroni into one end to mimic the bone. Coated in breadcrumbs, and fried until crisp, the cutlet looked, for all the world, like a proper piece of meat. By the 1950s, mining families across the Northeast relied on this clever sleight of hand to put something hearty on the plate for next to nothing. Children believed they were eating cutlets fit for the gentry. Mothers smiled at the small deception, knowing a quarter-pound of mince had just fed the lot of them. Pure ingenuity, now all but vanished. Number 20. Mince roly-poly turned the suet pudding savory, and few dishes filled a hungry house so completely. Housewives rolled out a suet pastry, spread it thick with seasoned mince and softened onion, then rolled it tight like a Swiss roll, wrapped it in a floured cloth, and steamed it for hours until the kitchen windows ran with condensation. The pastry swelled and turned glossy, the filling bubbling with savory juices within. By 1954, the savory roly-poly stood as the answer to cold nights and empty stomachs, a meal that asked little but time and a watchful eye on the pot. Sliced thick and drowned in onion gravy, it fortified men for long shifts and warmed children to the bone. The smell of steaming sweet and beef meant supper was near. Heavy, humble, and deeply satisfying, the savory roly-poly was thrift you could lean on, now faded from all but the oldest memories. Number 19. Stuffed marrow was the late summer treat that cost a gardener nothing at all. When the allotment marrows grew fat and the price of meat bit hard, housewives hollowed out the great green vegetable, packed the cavity with seasoned mince and onion bound with breadcrumbs, then baked it slow until the marrow turned tender and the filling set firm. By 1957, the dish appeared on tables wherever a garden or allotment yielded its summer glut, a perfect marriage of homegrown vegetable and a little cheap beef. The marrow flesh softened into something mild and sweet, carrying the savory filling like a vessel. Sliced into thick rounds, each portion revealed a spiral of meat at its heart. Children poked at the soft flesh. Mothers prized the way it stretched half a pound of mince across the whole family. A dish of season and circumstance, gone the moment marrows fell from fashion. Number 18. Mince fritters were the frugal cook's flourish, a way of turning the very last of the mince into something that felt almost like a treat. Housewives mixed small amounts of cooked, seasoned mince into a simple batter of flour, egg, and milk, then dropped spoonfuls into hot fat until they puffed and crisped golden brown. By the early 1950s, fritters of every kind crowded the post-war kitchen, but the mince fritter held a special place as a way to rescue the scrapings of yesterday's supper. The batter stretched a few spoonfuls of meat into a whole plateful, each fritter crisp on the outside and soft within. Served with a smear of brown sauce or a pool of gravy, they vanished from the plate in moments. Children thought them a luxury. Mothers knew them as the clever afterlife of leftovers, a small magic trick now lost to the deep fat fryers of memory. Number 17. Sea pie carried a curious name and not a fish in sight, a dish whose origins lay in the galleys of old sailing ships carried home to land. Housewives layered seasoned mince and root vegetables in a deep pot, then laid a single sheet of sweet pastry across the top, sealing in the steam so the filling cooked in its own savory juices. By 1952, the sea pie remained a thrifty favorite in working homes, especially in coastal and northern towns where the recipe had drifted ashore generations before. The pastry steamed soft on the underside and stayed firm on top, soaking up the gravy beneath. Cut into wedges and served with extra vegetables, it filled a family for pennies. Children puzzled over the name, mothers simply served it up without explanation. A dish of the docks and the dinner table alike, now a ghost of a meal that once crossed oceans. Number 16. Beef olives were the dish that gave the cheapest mince a touch of elegance, a small parcel of meat that looked far grander than its cost. Housewives spread thin slices of cheap beef, or sometimes a layer of seasoned mince with a savory breadcrumb and herb stuffing, rolled them tight, tied them with thread, and braised them slow in onion gravy until tender. By the mid-1950s, beef olives appeared at Sunday teas and special occasions in homes that wanted something a little finer without the cost of a proper joint. The stuffing stretched the meat, the slow braising made even tough cuts melt on the tongue. Untied at the table, each little roll revealed its spiral of savory filling. Children thought them a feast. Mothers prized the way they conjured occasion from economy. The beef olive dressed thrift in its Sunday best, and has since slipped quietly from the British repertoire. Number 15. Mince cobbler crowned a humble stew with a crown of golden scones, turning an ordinary supper into something that looked like a celebration. Housewives simmered mince with onion and carrot in a thick gravy, then arranged rounds of plain scone dough across the top before sliding the dish into the oven, where the cobbler topping rose and browned. By 1958, the mince cobbler had become a thrifty favorite, a way of capping a cheap stew with the comfort of fresh-baked scone. The dough soaked up the savory steam from below, crisp on top and soft beneath, while the mince bubbled around the edges. Served straight from the dish, it fed a family generously for very little. Children claimed the crispest scones, mothers ladled out the gravy beneath. The cobbler made a feast of frugality, golden and warm, a dish that has all but disappeared from the modern oven. Number 14. Mince stovies belonged to the Scottish kitchen, a one-pot supper that married mince and potato in the simplest possible way. Housewives browned the mince with onion, then layered sliced potatoes on top, added a little stock, and let the whole pot steam slow until the potatoes turned soft and soaked up every drop of savory liquor. By the early 1950s, stovies were a weeknight staple from the Highlands to the tenements, a dish that asked for one pan and a handful of ingredients. The potatoes broke down at the edges, thickening the gravy, while the mince gave it body and flavor. There was no waste, no fuss, only a pot set on the stove and left to do its work. Children mashed the soft potato into the meat. Fathers home from the yards praised its warmth. Stovies fed Scotland through hard times and have quietly faded from the everyday table. Number 13. Lancashire Lobby was the mill town's answer to the question of how to feed a family on almost nothing. A thick, slow-cooked pot that simmered all day on the range. Housewives browned a little mince or used scraps of cheap beef, then added potatoes, carrots, onions, and whatever else the larder offered, simmering the lot until it thickened into a hearty, spoon-standing stew. By 1955, Lobby was the backbone of the working week across the cotton towns, a dish so common it scarcely had a written recipe. The potatoes broke down to thicken the pot, the meat gave it depth, and a heel of bread mopped the bowl clean. Families ate it for days, the flavor deepening each time it was warmed through. Children grew up on its earthy warmth, mothers topped it up endlessly. Lobby fed the mills through lean years, a proud, plain supper now seldom seen beyond a few stubborn northern kitchens. Number 12. Sausage meat plat dressed the cheapest filling in a coat of golden pastry, a dish that looked like a centerpiece but cost almost nothing. Housewives spread seasoned sausage meat or well-flavored mince along a sheet of pastry, then cut diagonal strips down each side and folded them over in a neat plait before baking until crisp and bronzed. By the late 1950s, the plait had become a favorite for high teas and special suppers, a way of making the family table look generous on a modest budget. The pastry crackled, the filling stayed juicy within, and a single plait served the whole family with slices to spare. Children admired the woven crust. Mothers took quiet pride in its appearance. Served hot with gravy or cold with pickles the next day, the plait stretched a few pennies of meat into an occasion. Grand to look at, humble at heart, and now rarely plaited at all. Number 11. Mince and macaroni brought a touch of the foreign to the British plate long before pasta was fashionable, a thrifty union of cheap meat and cheaper carbohydrate. Housewives simmered seasoned mince with onion and a tin of tomatoes, then stirred through boiled macaroni until the whole dish came together in a comforting, saucy heap. By 1959, the dish had crept into homes across Britain, a way of stretching a small amount of mince with a bag of dried macaroni that cost next to nothing. The pasta soaked up the savory sauce, the mince gave it substance, and a sprinkle of cheese on top, if it could be spared, made it feel almost luxurious. Children loved the soft macaroni. Mothers loved how far it stretched. An early, homely cousin of the bolognese to come, mince and macaroni fed families on a shoestring and has long since been forgotten. Number 10. Faggots stood as the proud offal dish of the Midlands and Wales, a savoury parcel made from the parts of the pig that nothing else wanted. Butchers and housewives alike minced liver, heart and belly with onion, breadcrumbs and sage, shaped the mixture into balls, wrapped each in a lacy veil of caul fat, then baked them in a rich onion gravy. By the 1950s, faggots and peas were a beloved supper across the Black Country and the Welsh valleys, sold hot from shops and made at home for next to nothing. The gravy was thick and dark, the faggots dense and deeply savoury, the mushy peas a sweet counterpoint. Children watched mothers ladle the gravy over every last pea. Fathers claimed the crispest faggot from the dish. Born of thrift and the refusal to waste a single scrap, faggots fed working families well and survive now only in pockets of fierce local pride. Number 9. Curried mince with sultanas was the post-war housewife's bold step into the exotic. A mild, sweet curry built from a tin of curry powder and whatever was to hand. Housewives browned the mince with onion, stirred in a spoon of curry powder and a handful of sultanas, added a chopped apple for sweetness, then simmered the lot into a thick, fragrant sauce. By the late 1950s, this gentle British curry had become a tea-time adventure, a way of turning ordinary mince into something that smelled of far-off places. The sultanas plumped in the sauce, the apple melted to sweetness, and the curry powder lent a warmth quite unlike anything else on the weekly menu. Served over a bed of boiled rice, it felt daring and modern. Children either loved the sweet spiced sauce or pushed it warily round the plate. A taste of empire on a budget, now lost to the proper curries that followed. Number 8. Mince and onion pie ruled the supper table with a sturdy crust and a generous heart, a dish that turned cheap beef into something worth gathering round. Housewives lined a deep dish with short crust pastry, filled it with seasoned mince and softened onion bound in thick gravy, then sealed it beneath a golden lid and baked until the crust crisped and the filling bubbled through the vents. By 1956, the mince and onion pie was a fixture of the working week, baked at home or bought hot from the bakers for a few coppers. The pastry held the savoury filling firm, the gravy rich and dark within. Cut into thick wedges and served with mash and peas, it filled every seat at the table. Children queued for the corner pieces, mothers took pride in their pastry. Cheap, filling and endlessly reliable, the mince and onion pie has slipped from the everyday oven into nostalgia. Number 7. Stuffed peppers arrived as the post-war kitchen grew bolder, a colourful supper that dressed humble mince in something a little glamorous. Housewives hollowed out green peppers, packed them with seasoned mince, onion, and a little cooked rice, then baked them slow in a tomato sauce until the peppers softened and the filling set. By the early 1960s, as new vegetables appeared on greengrocers' shelves, stuffed peppers became a way of making a small amount of meat go further while looking thoroughly modern. The pepper turned sweet and tender in the oven, cradling the savoury filling, the tomato sauce pooling around the base. Children eyed the bright green shells with suspicion. Mothers served them with quiet pride at having tried something new. A dish that married thrift with a hint of continental flair, stuffed peppers had their moment, then quietly faded as tastes moved on. Number 6. Homemade beef burgers were the family treat that cost a fraction of anything from a shop, shaped by hand at the kitchen table. Housewives mixed minced beef with grated onion, a beaten egg, breadcrumbs and a good shake of seasoning, then pressed the mixture into flat patties and fried or grilled them until browned and juicy. By the late 1950s, the homemade burger had become a weekend favorite, a way of turning a pound of cheap mince into a meal the children genuinely looked forward to. The breadcrumbs stretched the meat, the onion kept it moist, and the smell of frying beef filled the house. Served in a soft bap or simply with mash and beans, they vanished in minutes. Children thought them a rare luxury, never knowing how little they cost. Long before the high street took the burger and made it its own, nans were shaping them by hand for next to nothing. Number 5. Meatloaf stood as the centerpiece that looked like a roast but cost like mince, a clever showpiece for the thrifty table. Housewives mixed seasoned mince with breadcrumbs, onion, and a beaten egg, pressed the lot into a loaf tin, and baked it until firm and browned, the top glazed, dark, and savory. By 1955, the meatloaf had become a Sunday stand-in for those weeks when a proper joint was out of reach, sliced thick and served with gravy and vegetables just like the real thing. The breadcrumbs stretched the meat further than seemed possible, the egg held every slice together, and cold leftovers made fine sandwiches for the week ahead. Children watched the loaf turned from its tin with ceremony, mothers carved it at the table with quiet pride. A roast in disguise, the meatloaf brought the dignity of Sunday to a Tuesday budget and has since slipped from the family table. Number 4. Mince Hot Pot took the proud layered hot pot of the North and built it from the cheapest meat in the shop. Housewives browned seasoned mince with onion and carrot, spread it in a deep dish, then crowned it with overlapping slices of potato that crisped and browned in the oven while the filling bubbled beneath. By the early 1950s, the mince hot pot offered the comfort of a proper hot pot at a fraction of the cost, a way of feeding a family well when the meat ration or the wage packet ran thin. The top layer of potato turned golden and crisp, the mince stayed rich and savory below, every layer soaked in flavor. Children fought over the crunchiest corner of potato. Fathers home from the cold praised its warmth. A humble cousin of the lamb hot pot that ruled the mill towns, the mince version fed countless families and has quietly vanished from the everyday oven. Number 3. Shepherd's pie carried the comfort of the whole nation in a single dish, a meal so beloved it became shorthand for home itself. Housewives simmered minced lamb with onion, carrot, and a thick savory gravy, spooned it into a dish, then smoothed a thick layer of buttery mashed potato across the top and baked it until the peaks turned golden and crisp. By 1957, shepherd's pie was a weekly fixture in homes across Britain, the proper version made with lamb to honor its name. The potato crust crisped at the edges, the mince stayed rich beneath, the whole dish filling the kitchen with the smell of a proper supper. Children ran their forks through the golden top, fathers asked for seconds, mothers took pride in a clean dish at the end. Warming, generous, and endlessly comforting, shepherd's pie fed generations on a modest budget. And though it survives, the homemade version grows rarer by the year. Number 2. Cottage pie claimed the place that shepherd's pie's beef-fed sibling deserved, the dish that turned the cheapest mince into the warmest of suppers. Housewives browned minced beef with onion and carrot, simmered it in a deep, savory gravy thickened with a crumbled OXO cube, then capped it with a generous layer of mashed potato forked into peaks and baked until crisp and golden. By the mid-1950s, the cottage pie was the undisputed workhorse of the family kitchen, made whenever a pound of beef mince had to feed the whole table. The potato turned crisp on top and soft beneath, the mince rich and dark within, the gravy soaking up into every forkful. Children prized the crunchy peaks. Mothers stretched a single pound of mince across 6 plates this way. Cheap, comforting, and utterly dependable, the cottage pie carried British families through their leanest weeks, the very soul of making do. And finally, in first place, mince and tatties crowned the British table as the ultimate expression of thrift, comfort, and the wisdom of the careful kitchen. Housewives browned a pound of mince hard in the pan, simmered it slow with onion and a thickened gravy, sometimes a handful of peas or a grated carrot stirred through, then served it in a great heap beside a mountain of buttery mashed potato. By 1958, mince and tatties was the most made supper in Scotland and a fixture across the whole of Britain, the dish a nan turned to without a recipe, by instinct alone. The gravy ran into the mash, the mince gave it body, and a slice of bread mopped the plate clean. Children mashed it all together into one savory whole. Fathers home from the shift ate in grateful silence. It cost so little and gave so much, feeding families through hard winters and tight weeks without ever feeling like a hardship. No dish better captured the genius of the thrifty kitchen, a humble pound of mince transformed into the taste of home itself. Today, fewer hands brown the mince and peel the tatties, But for those who grew up on it, no supper has ever come closer to comfort. There you have it. 25 forgotten mince dinners your nan made when money was tight. Which one took you straight back to her kitchen table? Tell me in the comments. And if this brought back a memory or two, give it a like and subscribe for more.